From JBS Studios in Greater New York, this is the JBS News Update with Teisha Bader.
I'm Teisha Bader with the JBS News Update for Monday, November the 28th, 2016. Israel's Air Force hit a target in Syria overnight last night being used by Islamic State-affiliated terrorists. According to the IDF, the target was an abandoned UN building that has been used by the Islamic State as an operations center along the border in the southern Syrian Golan Heights. They said the compound was the base for yesterday's attack against IDF forces. The IDF said it will not hesitate to act against terror groups that operate against the State of Israel. Yesterday's attack took place along the border with Syria, where Israeli soldiers came under small arms fire and then mortar shells from Islamic State-affiliated militants, marking the first IDF clash with the terror group. In response, Israel's Air Force hit a truck that, according to the IDF, had some sort of machine gun on top of it, killing the 4 terrorists in it. IDF spokesperson Lieutenant Colonel Peter Lerner called the exchange yesterday morning short but productive. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said Israel won't allow Islamic State figures or other enemy actors under the cover of the war in Syria to set up next to our borders. And Israeli Defense Minister Avigdor Lieberman said Israel is not looking for a fight, but when we are faced with provocation in Gaza, on the Syrian or Lebanese borders, we will respond forcefully, as was done here. A group of Israeli soldiers who mistakenly drove into a Palestinian city in the West Bank were safely escorted out by Palestinian Authority police. The 4 troops entered the city of Tulkarem today, where rocks were thrown at their vehicle. 1 soldier was lightly injured. They were then escorted to safety by Palestinian police in collaboration with the Defense Ministry's civil administration. A Palestinian terrorist who murdered 2 Israelis last year was given 2 life sentences today. 36-year-old Raed Masalme was found guilty of stabbing Reuven Aviram and Aharon Yesiav to death in the synagogue of an office building in Tel Aviv on November the 19th of 2015. Former First Lady of Israel Miriam Eshkol has died. Eshkol was the widow of Israel's 3rd Prime Minister Levi Eshkol. She served in the pre-Israeli army of the Palmach and is remembered for her work in establishing the National Center for Disabled IDF Veterans, as well as for forming the Jewish-Arab Friendship League, among other endeavors. Mrs. Eshkol died Saturday afternoon at Jerusalem's Hadassah Medical Center at the age of 87. She will be buried at the Mount Herzl Cemetery in Jerusalem next to her husband. Reuters reports that Germany's highest federal court has upheld the conviction of 95-year-old former Auschwitz guard Oskar Groening for being an accessory to murder, rejecting an appeal by his attorneys. Groening, if you recall, was sentenced in July of last year to 4 years in prison for his role in the murder of 300,000 Hungarian Jews at the death camp. Groening admits that he collected money and valuables of murdered Jews for the Nazis and asked for forgiveness during his trial, saying that he was morally complicit, but that the court had to decide if his actions were criminal. It remains to be seen whether Groening is well enough to actually serve his prison term. Well, devastating fires that have been burning across Israel for almost a week are finally under control. Planes and equipment were welcomed from numerous foreign countries to help Israeli firefighters battle the blazes, some of which are suspected of being arson. And the Palestinian Authority sent some 40 firefighters and 8 fire trucks to help Israel as well. Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu called PA President Mahmoud Abbas to thank him and said that Abbas told him that sending those firefighters was, quote, the right thing to do. And 39 firefighters from across the United States, Jewish and non-Jewish, flew to Israel to help in a sign of brotherhood, part of a group called the Emergency Volunteers Project. And the Jewish Agency for Israel announced that it will provide funds to hundreds of families whose homes were damaged by the fires, including from special contributions from the Jewish Federations of North America. Jewish Agency Chairman Natan Sharansky said he appreciated the solidarity of the American Jewish community, especially at this time. The International Fellowship of Christians and Jews, the Jewish National Fund, and the Israeli American Council also opened special drives to help those affected by the fires and for the massive restoration work that has just begun. And taking a look now at our programming for tonight on JBS from Monday, November the 28th. At 7 o'clock, the wisdom of Dr. Ruth Westheimer. At 7:30, our coverage of the opening plenary from the Jewish Federations of North America's General Assembly in Washington. At 9, Mark Golub sits down with Meg Akabas, founder of Parenting Solutions, who discusses the challenges of being a young Jewish parent. At 10, historian Simon Shama speaks from the 92nd Street Y. And coming up right after this newscast at 6:30, Mark Golub speaks with editor-in-chief of the Allgemeiner, David Efyun, who discusses the reasons why Donald Trump won the presidential election and analyzes the Jewish reaction to it. That's on In the News at 6:30. And that's the JBS News Update for Monday, November the 28th, 2016. I'm Teisha Bader.